Hey everybody, it's Margot.
Guys, I'm such a fucking actress.
And Lydia.
Strong black woman over here.
But you already know why we're here.
Pop off, sis.
I went commando on public transportation, huh?
Oh my god.
I love a good lazy river because I'm lazy and I like water.
Pop off, sis.
Guys, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of hungover right now.
The content you may not want but deserve.
Pop off.
I think I popped off about that.
You popped off.
Pop off, sis! Hello. Welcome back, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome. We have to start off the bat by addressing the elephant in the room. The new intro?
What do we think?
Did
Nice.
did we hear that? Did we register the newness of that? Do we like? I hope we like.
I
Do
hope
we?
we love. It's just a new era. It's a new moment.
It's a new moment. We got some new stuff coming your way today, fellow friends, listeners. We are augmenting what Pop Off Sis already is into something even greater, in my opinion. So, shout out to Lydia's cousin for the music.
Amara Hall at Amara Give Love on Instagram. Check her out. Woo!
Check her out. Thank you so much for that. That was amazing. We have this new intro. We hope you like it. We hope it brings the energy that you expect from this podcast and that hopefully you've grown to love.
Yeah.
And that's that.
We realized we've been at this for months now and we've got some great content stored and we just wanted to showcase that a little bit through the intro. So we're excited and can't wait for more to come.
We're going to jump straight into our roses of the week. Lydia, what's your rose? What's your positivity this week?
Okay. Can you read this? Do you know what that says?
Scar serum.
And why do I have a scar? Why do I have a freaking stretch band? Because I recently had foot surgery. I have what you call a bunion, aka the old people bone, which I guess my grandmother passed down to her favorite grandchild. That can be the only reason that it happened to me. But basically it's like your foot bone on the side is just growing too much and just starting to come across towards all your other little toes, and it's not a fun time. So I recently had surgery to remove that bunion on my right foot, my driving foot. I'm stuck at home. And it went well. Everything was great. My rose is that I have started walking again because I was on crutches for about a week and I'm walking. And pretty soon I'll have my stitches, the ends of my stitches come out. They cut them off and everything else just kind of heals up. So yeah, we are in here in the healing process. And you might be like, why did you have surgery during a pandemic? I know, kind of crazy, but I was in a surgery center, so I didn't have to go to a hospital, and we kind of thought, I'm home, job hunting, but not really doing anything. It's a good time. My parents are home to help me. So yeah, so we're healing up over here. Good vibes over here. Yeah.
I'm so glad surgery went well. I am glad you are healing. We are glad the bunion is gone. Goodbye, bunion. And that is some positivity that you can walk again.
Mm-hmm.
We're
Yep.
glad. We're
Thanks.
glad to hear it. My rose this week is that I was in my first commercial ever.
Choo choo choo.
Okay, I mean, let me not hype this up too much. It was a low budget commercial for a juice cleanse company. But I got paid and it was so fun. Obviously pandemic going on, so they were very safe about it. I wore my mask, they wore their mask. There was hand sanitizer literally everywhere, and there was only 4 people on set total, including me. So very low key, super fun. It was just such a good time. It was I would relay it to those Yoplait commercials that you've seen with, the women eating the yogurt and looking so happy, and then they have shots of them around the house just like smiling and feeling so refreshed. It was kind of in that vein of, just wow, I look so good. So there were literally shots where the director sat me down and was like, just look content, just look refreshed. So I would just kind of sit there and smile and look around. And it was great. Good time. So happy to have done it. And now hopefully I can get a couple more.
Make that money. Oh, that's so cool. So we'll be seeing you soon, on our local commercial, our national commercial. We love it.
We love it.
Wow, that's awesome. Congratulations. Your first one.
Thank you.
Wow. We said this is a new era of sorts, a new moment. Let's say new moment.
Moment.
And with new moments come new things. And we have a new segment coming your way. And we have titled it, What's Poppin' This Week? Okay, very on brand with our Pop Off Sis theme. Thank you, Margot, for a wonderful title, because So this segment is all about kind of our favorite new things, whether that's in the media, whether that's political, whether that's, I don't know, your favorite tofu that Margot had last night. It could be anything. But it's just our way to, keep it personal, keep it to us, and talk about some new things going on that week. So there's a catch, though, because we got to stay real with y'all, because we got to be real, right? Also, it could be something that's not popping this week. Things that should not be relevant, but are. Like what?
Like the Kissing Booth 2.
Who cares?
Let me just talk about this for literally 2 seconds. Last Friday, I was home alone. I wanted some joy, so I was like, listen, I watched the first one. It was a guilty pleasure. It wasn't that bad, like kind of happy, not boring. So I had pretty high I had moderate expectations for Kissing Booth 2. I sit down, I watch it, I'm looking for joy, and I was like, what is this piece of trash that has been put in front of me that looks like it was filmed in literally 2 days? The storyline was so odd and it just wasn't it. And I was like, too many of these poor romantic comedies that are tolerable make sequels that are just horrendous, and I would have to categorize this as one of those sequels. Not
we
popping.
do not love to see that. Not popping. Kissing Booth 2. But what is popping, which we just found out, is these Emmy nominations. And can we just say, Zendaya herself, Zendaya Coleman, dancer, singer, actress, 23-year-old, by the way, she's our age basically, has been nominated for her role in Euphoria. Okay, we know you've seen Euphoria, because if you haven't, you're going to go watch it now. But it came out last summer on HBO. Great show. Zendaya plays, she's like a recovering drug addict in high school, and it's just her first really breakout role, and the show itself got nominated for 6 Emmys. And she got nominated for the Outstanding Lead Actress in a Drama Series. Now, she's got some hefty competition, like Jennifer Aniston, Laura Linney, who else? Just a lot of like other huge names. But I think she might take it. But either way, this is her first like starring role kind of as a grown-up, and it's just like, she deserves this. I'm so happy for her. So she's popping this week.
She's popping. That scene where she's banging on the door when she's going through withdrawal is popping. If you haven't seen Euphoria, like Lydia said, go watch it right now.
We might have to rewatch it, because why not?
You might just have to. That is popping. Go Zendaya. I remember you from your Shake It Up. Is it Shake It Up or Shake It Off? Shake It Up. Mm-hmm. Shake It Up years on the Disney Channel. And how much you have grown. And yeah, she did amazing that role. So that was great. The other thing that's popping this week is Taylor Swift's new album, Folklore. Go listen to it. Even if you're not a Taylor Swift fan, even if you haven't been a fan in the past, this is all the indie vibes. So if you like anything indie, kind of sad, but in a good way, puts you in your feels, but in a good way, and makes you want to cuddle up in a cardigan, the name of her single, go listen to it because that is poppin'.
Bam. Okay, we got to catch up on our latest tea, of course. Oh, there's a lot to unpack. It's been 2 weeks since we've last seen you, but so much can happen in a day, let alone a week, let alone 2 weeks. So let's get into it. You know, we would be remiss if we didn't bring up Jada and Will Smith on the most recent Red Table Talk episode where Jada brings herself to the table. Okay, Margot has a lot to say on this, so I'll let you start. Go right ahead.
Okay, well, just letting the folks know who aren't caught up on the tea or the coffee as Lydia is sipping on it. The rapper August Alsina came out in an interview and said that he had had relations with Jada Pinkett Smith, Will Smith's 25 years of marriage wife. That was a weird way to phrase it, but you know what I'm saying. And he said all this stuff. He said that Will Smith had given them permission to have a relationship. There have been theories for a couple of years that Will and Jada Smith have an open relationship, and so people took this as a confirmation. And literally, Twitter went crazy. Everyone was demanding to know what was going on. They were saying Jada was so wrong for ever having relations with this guy who came from a very sick place, then met the Smiths, and they kind of helped him get into a better mental place. I also think he might have been struggling financially. I think they helped him out in a lot of ways. And people were saying, you know, Jada's taking advantage of this guy who was struggling, blah, blah. So Will and Jada Smith took themselves to the table, to the Red Talk table, which, if you don't know, is Jada Smith's podcast of sorts, where they sit around. Usually it's her daughter Willow, and her mother sit around a red table, and they'll bring guests on, and then they'll talk about stuff. The first thing we have to mention before we even get into the meat of what they said is the word entanglement, because Jada reveals that she had a, quote, entanglement with August, which Will Smith immediately calls her out for because he's like, entanglement, and she's like, oh no, I mean a relationship. Who uses the word entanglement? What is that even? That is the oddest thing.
Your headphones get entangled, okay? Your yarn gets entangled. You don't entangle yourself with a person. It's a relationship, and Will called her out on what it is, and relationship, a sexual relationship.
Your body parts don't just get entangled, okay? You have to take some work to get there. So that was just a choice of words that was very interesting. Essentially, the conversation started off with Will and Jada admitting that they had to come to the table because Twitter was going crazy. It was headlines all over the place, which to have headlines all over the place about your personal relationships is just horrible. It's got to be the worst thing to live through. But people were demanding to know the truth. So they came out and told us, kinda. Jada said that 4.5 years ago, her family and she became friends with August, the rapper, that he needed help. He wasn't in a good place with his mental health, and that the whole family kind of came together to help this guy out. Even Will admitted it. And they call him Og, by the way. So seems like they're friendly, which, I mean, it was kind of interesting because later you learn that Jada hasn't spoken to this guy since their relationship ended. So to be calling him Og when you haven't spoken to him in years is a little odd, but alas. Will and Jada Smith at the time were separated. They were going through a really difficult time. They don't explain why they were separating. It could have just been, the relationship was in a good spot. Who knows? Will says, and I quote, "I was done with your ass." So obviously they were not in a good place as a married couple. Things weren't looking up. They broke up so that they could go and figure themselves out. And both of them made it clear that they thought they were over forever. Like they thought this was it 4.5 years ago. I'm out. I'm done. Peace. Peace out. Jada makes it really clear that August never got permission from Will to have a relationship with her when they were separated, because he made it sound like that since they were in an open relationship, he went to Will, and Will said that because there was nothing romantic going on in their relationship, that it was okay. But Jada was like, the only person who can give permission to be in a relationship is me, right? So she was trying to make it clear that didn't happen. And then she talked a lot about how she was in a really bad place herself. She said, you can't find happiness outside yourself. And she ends up saying that her and Will did everything they could to get away from each other, only to realize it wasn't possible. Because as we know now, they're still together, 25 years of marriage, and they ended up rekindling and moving on. She admits, and I think this is a pretty big point in this conversation, that it felt really good to heal someone in her relationship with August. It's been very clear that August was not in a good place when they started dating, and neither was she. She said she really wasn't in a good place, and that it felt good to have somebody who she knew she could help fix. I think she's been very open about her, and her mother has been very open about having drug abuse and substance abuse issues that made Jada's life really difficult, especially in childhood. And there could be some of that going into, I want to help fix people, because she couldn't help fix her parents or her mom the way that she had wanted to when she was a kid. What Will says that I think is poignant is, they got together and married very young. And he said, quote, "To be able to make mistakes without the fear of losing your family is so important," end quote. So it seems as though now they have this trust, they have a relationship. They didn't go into it, so they might have an open relationship, they might not. Either way, it seems like they are in a better place than where they were all those years ago. However, clearly during the conversation, there were some uncomfortable points where there was some awkward laughing. A lot of people have said that, Will looks miserable, that he was saying one thing, but in his eyes, you could see another. There were some petty comments. And obviously, there's still some hurt surrounding this conversation. So, I mean, Lydia, what did you think? What do you think is happening? Let us discuss.
I would like to make one thing perfectly clear. This is an entanglement. Okay? In case Jada was wondering. Okay. I personally think that Will is clearly not over this. It's in his eyes, it's in his tone, it's in the way he looks at her. Like, yes, this was 4 years ago, but it's relevant right now, so it's brought up in their family right now, and I think he hasn't healed those wounds, and I think that they are very honest with each other, and I think they are truly family, like he said. I believe that, but he's not over it, and I just think that they realize, I think, that they're stronger together than they are apart, financially, in the public eye, that kind of thing. But they seem to have a very toxic relationship to me. I mean, towards the end of the conversation, Will said something like, I'm going to get you back, though. And I'm like, you don't say that to someone you've reconciled with and you've made up with and you're moving forward as a couple. Why are you saying that? And then she was like, oh, you've gotten me back plenty. So it's like, okay, what has he done? Like, I think that they are in all honesty, I feel that they are over each other in a romantic sense. I think they are a partnership, which they have said before on the show. Jada has said that they have moved from a traditional relationship to a partnership. So it's not, I don't think they have that kind of intimate relationship that they once did. That's what I got from it.
That's interesting. I mean, it's true, like, that comment was a little jarring when Will says, I'm going to get you back, though. And everyone's kind of like, wait, what? But I don't know. To me, there were a lot of things that I felt like people were overreacting about. Like, one, Will and Jada were broken up when this happened, so it wasn't an affair. It was she went and did that. They were probably still in love with each other. They've been married for 21 years, I think, if I'm doing my math correctly. Between 20 and a half to 21 years already. So obviously you're not going to get over that person. And if you're separated, you never want to know that the person who you were in love with and, faithful to for all that time is getting with somebody else. But in my opinion, I'm like, she was a single Pringle. They said they thought they were over forever, so she could do what she wanted. I don't know.
Why is she moving on so quickly?
Well, she wasn't in a good place, and Will wasn't doing what she needed. I mean, to me, it's like, they were broken up. She was allowed to do whatever she wanted. Obviously, it hurts. And I think that's a lot of what you see in the episode is like, I don't think that it's still a thing that they fight about. I think it's always going to be a sore wound. You never want to know that the person, unless you have an open relationship, you never want to know that the person who you're committed to went and, was entangled with somebody else, right? Like, you don't want to know that. You don't want to think about that happening. But so obviously, if you talk about it, it's going to be uncomfortable. But it's also, it's something that happened. And like, when they talk about their love for each other, that is something I genuinely believe. I think it's interesting that you say they're over each other romantically, and it's more like a deep love and partnership. That's something I hadn't really thought about. But mainly, I feel like this entire situation is none of anybody's business. It's not anybody's business. And people were so mad, and they were calling Jada out, and they were saying she was like abusive to August because she was so much older than he was, and he was in a vulnerable state. I'm like, she was in a vulnerable state too. And listen, he was 23, 24. Again, this is me trying to do math. When they dated, obviously that's young, but that's not 18. You know what I mean? Like, your mind is fully formed at that point. He was, it was a consensual relationship. They were both hurting. It was probably a terrible relationship. They were both mentally unstable at that point. But like, it happened. And I think marriage isn't all sunshine and rainbows. It's not this perfect fairy tale, this shit they sell you in rom-coms. I love a rom-com, but it's not real. And marriage is a lot of hard work. And I think what you see on the Red Table Talk that so many people were so quick to judge is two people choosing each other over the situation. They're looking at the situation. They're saying that shit sucked. Will is saying that hurt me so bad. And he's like, but I still choose you. Like I've talked about before on this podcast, just because you're dating somebody doesn't mean you don't have urges around other people. Doesn't mean like you suddenly find everyone unattractive. That's not true. What love is really about is choosing that person at the end of the day and saying, you're my person. I know that above everyone else, and I will fight for you through it all. That's not to say that there aren't situations where people shouldn't be together. I totally believe there are very toxic relationships, and you got to know who you're fighting for and whether it's worth fighting for. But celebrities have so much pressure to have like these perfect relationships, and that's why so many of them get divorced, in my opinion, is because people put them on these pedestals of these unrealistic expectations. I don't know. Do you have retorts to anything I said?
I have a couple rebuttals.
All right, let's hear it.
But you make a great point. There is a lot of pressure, especially in the spotlight, to have a perfect marriage. I think that's a great point you make too about, we're so quick to judge and be like, oh, well, she cheated, even though she technically didn't. She cheated, he should leave her. Like, no, because the unpopular, harder thing to do is to stay and work through that. And that's what they're doing. And you're right. I think it's very hard for people to accept that and not just reject it. So good point. Now, you saying it's none of our business, I would have agreed with you a couple weeks ago, but just think about the brand of Red Table Talk itself is a very like multi-generational show where they bring everything out on the table, talk about hard conversation, whether that's colorism, addiction, abuse. Like Jada and her mother and her daughter, they talk about everything. So I feel that it's very inauthentic for her to have had this past and have that come up in the media and then not address it and just move on and have all these guests on and talk about their trauma and things going on in their life when she doesn't even address her own. I understand some things are private, but part of her brand is talking about hard conversations. And when you have something like that that comes to the light, I don't think you can just ignore it and hope people don't pry into that. You know what I mean? So I think just the fact that she has it, maybe if she didn't have this show, I would feel a little differently and feel more like you that it's not our business. But I think that in this situation, it is our business. And I think they did the bare minimum when she usually has 45 to hour-long episodes, and she had a 12 to 13-minute episode about this. I think that she could have gone even further with it. So that's just how I feel.
You know what? You make a good point. Normally, I feel like celebrities, which is kind of ironic because I'm on a pop culture podcast, but I feel like people are way too invested with their lives, especially their relationships, because I think relationships are a very like personal thing and that you shouldn't have to share them with the world. But it is, you do make a good point that her entire podcast or show or whatever it's categorized as is about talking about hard stuff. And it is true that this episode is starkly different than the other episodes where it's just her and Will, and it's much shorter and they don't really dig into the meat of it. I think you can definitely see a bit of resistance from her in the episode where Will is like,
I'm sorry to cut you off, but she didn't even want to call it a relationship.
Yeah. But at the same time, maybe it wasn't a relationship in the typical way when you think of a relation. Like if it was just a sexual relationship, that's one thing. If it was like maybe she wasn't in love, so maybe she felt like she couldn't call it a relationship in that way because it's different. I think also it's so hard, and I guess her daughter and her mother do it though on the show, but it is hard to talk about your own failures and your own struggles with mental health, because if it's not something she's fully processed yet, like that point in her life, then how can you talk about it like that? But I do see what you're saying. I just think that I think my main takeaway was people put marriage on this pedestal that I think it's not. And I think it's honestly amicable that they fought. Like, I loved when she said we tried, to get away from each other as far as possible, and something always came and brought us back together. Like, that could be seen in a very negative way, like, right? Like, that's a toxic relationship. You keep going back to what's wrong for you. Or it can mean, like, they genuinely have love and respect for each other, that even through, like, the really hard shit, they stay together.
You make some good points. That's what this discourse is for.
You do too. You do too.
Now we're going to move on to politics, as we do, because we love being educated in the now, young women. Our girl, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a Democratic member of Congress from New York, has made a lot of headlines lately, as you've seen her speech that she gave in rebuttal to Representative Yoho, who is a Republican congressman who recently got into some choice words with her on the steps of the U.S. Capitol in front of reporters. They were talking about legislation or something that they disagreed on, which is predictable. They're on different sides of the aisle. But basically, in front of reporters, Mr. Yoho called her a fucking bitch. Now, this wasn't on camera. We don't have a clip of this, but there was plenty of people around to witness it. And mind you, this was after him calling her disgusting, crazy, dangerous. He put his finger in Alexandria's face. And yeah. Now, AOC said she wasn't going to say anything publicly about it, like she wasn't going to address it, until Representative Yoho had an interesting, like 2-3 minute speech on the floor saying that he has been married for 45 years and has 2 daughters, but he cannot apologize for his passion. So that's what he's calling what he said to her, was just his passion coming out. I don't think we need to go into how hypocritical that statement is. You know, women get called bitches and everything else for being passionate as well, but of course men can get away with it. So him saying that prompted AOC to speak on it, and she made such an incredible speech, which you can see a clip of here.
So while I was not deeply hurt or offended by little comments that are made, when I was reflecting on this, I honestly thought that I was just going to pack it up and go home. It's just another day, right? But then yesterday, Representative Yoho decided to come to the floor of the House of Representatives and make excuses for his behavior. And that I could not let go. I could not allow my nieces, I could not allow the little girls that I go home to, I could not allow victims of verbal abuse and worse to see that excuse, and to see our Congress accept it as legitimate and accept it as an apology, and to accept silence as a form of acceptance. I could not allow that to stand, which is why I am rising today to raise this point of personal privilege. And I do not need Representative Yoho to apologize to me. Clearly, he does not want to. Clearly, when given the opportunity, he will not. And I will not stay up late at night waiting for an apology from a man who has no remorse over calling women and using abusive language towards women. But what I do have issue with is using women, our wives and daughters, as shields and excuses for poor behavior. Mr. Yoho mentioned that he has a wife and 2 daughters. I am 2 years younger than Mr. Yoho's youngest daughter. I am someone's daughter too. My father, thankfully, is not alive to see how Mr. Yoho treated his daughter. My mother got to see Mr. Yoho's disrespect on the floor of this house towards me on television. And I am here because I have to show my parents that I am their daughter and that they did not raise me to accept abuse from men.
As you can see, it was very powerful, and we just have to talk about it because it was so amazing. And once again, she comes out on top. I mean, just, I don't even know where to start. How did you feel about it? What stood out to you?
That speech was everything. I mean, I just listened in awe. I think I was tipsy the first time I watched it, and I was like, yeah, this is so good. Listen, all of us women have dealt with this. All of us. Every single woman you know has dealt with this. And she literally says that in her speech, so I'm kind of like paraphrasing her words here, but being called a fucking bitch is not an abnormality in any of our lives. It's not weird. It's a fact of life. And men viewing women as other or as different or as less than, or choosing words to describe a woman that they never would a man, or sexualizing us, all of that is so normal. And she literally says, this is not new, and that is the problem. She is a representative in Congress. Why have we raised men in such a way where they feel like they can disrespect somebody who's at the same level of power, of leadership as they are? I don't care how much they disagree on all of the issues. It shouldn't matter. At the end of the day, you can say, I fucking hate your policy. Okay, hopefully you use like better words to each other. But let's say you are passionate. You can say, your policy is so stupid. I hate it. It's terrible. You could say, why would you vote that way? Voting that way is selfish. It's not fighting for equality, whatever. You can yell at each other about your policy, about your votes, about your bipartisan issues, but to not respect one another at the end of the day as people who have been given the same level of office and are elected officials and human beings and should be respected. It shouldn't fucking matter what your gender is. It shouldn't matter if you're male, female, non-binary, trans. It shouldn't fucking matter. Like, at the end of the day, you should treat every human with respect, and no man would have ever been called a fucking bitch. Like, that's not a word that's used for men.
Right.
Why? Right? Then people are like, well, because it means female dog. It's like, no, it's just because we have certain words that we use and that we normalize to describe females. And the quote of the century, I think, is having a daughter does not make a man decent. Having a wife does not make a man decent. Treating people with dignity and respect makes a man decent. Because I am so tired of the narrative where it's like, you wouldn't say that to your mom. You wouldn't say that to your sister. It's like, you shouldn't say that to another human being.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. Full stop, period. And that's like AOC said. She's like, I am someone's daughter, you know? Like, and what got me, it was very emotional because her father has passed away. But she even said, my father thankfully is not alive to see how Mr. Yoho treated his daughter. And I was like, but I just love that she even said she was speaking up. You know, Mr. Yoho brings up that he has 2 daughters, and she's like, well, now I got to speak up for your daughters because clearly you've made it okay to use that language, so you can't be their protector in that sense. Like, she hit all cylinders, she hit all points, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that we just don't even have that kind of language for men. Like, that's the thing. And it just worries me, like, this is a congressperson. This is someone that's elected to represent people in this country. Like, and even still, after he said something like that, he couldn't even apologize for it, and didn't, and made it clear that he did not want to apologize for it. And that's the scary thing to me, is like getting reamed in the press about it. He still was like, I'm passionate, sorry.
I saw so many justifications for why he would have said that on social media. It was like, well, I don't agree with her politics, so she had it coming. And, you know, like all of this stuff. And it's like, that doesn't justify it. And like you said, having a congressman say this and say that to a woman, it is, like AOC said, it is allowing other men to call his wife that, to call his daughters that. He's allowing it. And I like that she was standing up on their behalves. It's like, oh, you have a wife and daughters. I am standing up for them. I am here for them. I'm not here for me, but I'm here for all women. It's just, so many people think that we've gotten to a point of equality for women in this country, and that is so far from the narrative, because as long as we are being treated in a way that is inferior, that makes it sound like we are different beings than men, and that we can't have the same level of intellectual capacity, or that we aren't able to be viewed not as objects, we have not reached equality.
Mm-hmm.
Even on the day where to the dollar, to the cent, every woman makes the same as a man for the same job, which is not happening, by the way.
Right.
Like, there are some people who think that is not happening. There is still a huge pay gap. Even on that day, if society still treats women as objects and as different than men, we still aren't at equality. We still aren't there. That's what I have to say.
You're exactly right. They're just, it's kind of like, when will this end, if it will ever end? Why? Even if you don't want to apologize, it's like, just think of it from the optic standpoint. Like, just apologize for the principle of it, so that you can look good, if anything else, so that you can look good in front of your constituents and in front of the country. Like, he just showed us where this country is at, and it's just a scary place.
And on that note, I think we have to do some ranting.
We gotta pop off.
Because we are riled up. You know it. You love it. It's time for Savage Seconds. We are popping off in 3, 2, and 1.
Okay, I'm really trying to get better at this whole, like, don't worry about things that you can't control thing, but I've always had issues with, like, tongue depressors, anything medical having to do with my face, and before my surgery, I had to get a COVID test. I was more stressed out about this damn test than the actual surgery. They put that thing all the way up your nose. These CDC people, experts, can you please come up with a better way to test for COVID? Because, it was awful. Oh, I still got time. It was really bad, okay? I don't recommend it. I mean, it's quick, but, like, if you don't have to do it, don't do it.
Okay, well, listen. My classes came out with their schedules, and literally everything is online. Every single one of my classes, after University of Maryland said it was going to prioritize performance classes, and then it never did. But do you know who got priority? Do you know what classes are in person? Business? I'm sorry, do you need to be in person to learn how to sell a fucking purse? I didn't think so. So I'm sorry, where's my priority? It's nowhere, because I don't care about the performing arts.
Wow. They really did that? I thought you were going to say, like, STEM or, like labs.
It's time to move forward from this conversation into our new segment called Moving Forward.
I see what you did there. Oh, come on. Tell me about moving forward.
It's our new segment. As you can tell, today we are back to a normal episode after we haven't been for 3 or 4 episodes. I'm not even sure how many anymore, because we felt talking about Black Lives Matter and racial inequality was at the forefront of what we should be talking about. And that has not stopped. We still feel that the social inequities in this country need to be a topic of conversation for us. We grew up in the DMV. It's deeply political. It's deeply about fighting for people's rights, and we want to continue to do what we can. So moving forward is our new segment where we're going to talk about important issues and what you can do to help certain movements and just bringing certain movements to light.
I just want to make it clear too that, like, there's nothing that I hate more than listening to podcasts or watching things that have talked about really important issues like Black Lives Matter and then moved on back to normal episodes or normal anything. So we just want to make it clear that, like, we are really not trying to do that, and that's what this segment is for, like Margot said. But just know that, like, it really, I know you said this already, but it's just really important to me that people know, and that we obviously for ourselves know that, like, we're in no way moving on. It's just incorporating some lighter notes within these important conversations as well.
For sure. Our little activist selves aren't going anywhere. They're still here. They've always been here, and they will continue to thrive. But now we feel as though we've created a specific place within our episodes to talk about it.
A permanent place.
A permanent place. New and improved. Pop off, sis.
New moment.
Lydia, take us away.
Oh, okay. Well, for this week, my note on moving forward is talking about Joe Biden's vice presidential pick. He is expected to announce on August 1st, which I believe is this weekend. So by the time this episode comes out, we'll know who his vice presidential pick is. And one point on this, I just wanted to ask you, Margot, what direction do you think he's heading in terms of like a woman of color versus a white woman, or who you just might have a guess that he's picking? But before you say, my way people can help with this, because you might be like, oh, this is just a topic, this isn't like what can I do to help with that. It's just regardless of who he picks, I mean, I don't know how you could be worse than number 45, but regardless of who he picks, it's important to vote on election day, regardless of who his VP is. We know it will be better than the current administration, but the point is vote for him, vote for him and his VP, obviously, but vote. Anyway, who do you think it's going to be?
I honestly have no idea. Like, I'm not gonna lie. My family and I were talking. We were like, what if it was Michelle Obama? I'd be so happy.
That would be
Did you see the ad he released with the socially distanced conversation with Obama? God.
I'm quoting my mother here, but she said, the swag in that room, the swag.
It made me really want Obama back. That's kind of all that I mean, I was like, I'm sad, kind of. I mean, I'm happy the conversation happened, but I'm sad. I have no idea, in all honesty. We'll find out soon. So, but at the end of the day, I know who I'm voting for, and just reiterating what Lydia said, vote. There have been so many times, so many people haven't had the privilege of voting. Even living in the District of Columbia, we weren't able to vote living in the district until 1961. We couldn't vote in the Electoral College. We had no say in who the president was, which, by the way, was a racist policy because at that time, DC was majority Black. Now it is, the percentage has gone down because gentrification. But if we're going to be talking about that, living in this city, in which we have less representation, voting in the election is one of the only times we get a say in what happens in the higher powers that are within our own city. So please just vote. Get an absentee ballot. If you can't go on voting day, if you're trying to go on voting day and socially distance vote, look at where the voting centers are, how much time it's going to take, if there's going to be a lot of people, if social distancing slows down the vote. We got to prepare. We got to prepare, and we got to be ready. So by October and November, we know what's happening and we are able to vote. Register to vote. Don't forget that, because if you show up on election day, it's a dumb rule, but you can't register. You have to be pre-registered, and there are registration deadlines. Check them out. Know when they are for your state and vote.
Yep.
And with that wisdom, I think that we should move into our quotes of the day.
My quote is by Lao Tzu, and my dad wants credit for this. He did give me this quote, so thank you, Dad. It's a great one. It says, rejoice in the way things are. When you realize there is nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you.
Oh, I love that. I feel like that's important during the current state of the world, especially being in quarantine. We got to rejoice in the way things are right now. My quote is by John Lennon, and it is, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans.
Ah, what a classic one. Yes. It's true. Or like if you're religious, they say like if you make plans and God laughs. It's true. You just got to live in the moment.
You got to live in the moment and just go after whatever it is. I feel like the biggest thing I'm trying to learn right now is that there is extra time, and I can't keep using this extra time to say, well, I'm going to do that. I'm going to write that down on my list of things and I'll get to it. Like, let me use this time now and get stuff done. and feel like I'm actually living through this instead of this crazy time just passing me by.
We will see you next week. We hope you enjoy the outro, which is going to match the intro. So stay tuned for that. Listen to the end. But have a great 2 weeks, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
And that's the show. Stalk us on Instagram at popoffsis.podcast and check out our Pop Off Sis YouTube channel.
We'll see you next time. Pop off, sis.